What's going on, guys? Today, I'm going to do another tutorial on how to fetch and render data using an API and JavaScript. This is one of the most important things you can learn as a web developer. I'll probably do a few different videos for a few different APIs just to show you how different APIs work. This example will be in React, but the API usage and concepts are the same for anything else you might use. API stands for Application Program Interface. I'm lost. It's basically just a fancy way of saying it's a way for apps to talk to each other. The National Weather Service has an API that lets you retrieve current weather, forecasted weather, any weather alerts, things like that. Google Maps has an API that lets you grab things like directions for different types of transportation, like driving, walking, or cycling, and you can get traffic predictions, estimated route times, etc. And how APIs work is you can send a GET request, which is basically a URL, and that gets data. And so you send a request, and the API sends a response, and then you parse that data, and then you can use it or render it as needed. And public APIs will have documentation on how you can structure that URL in a specific way to grab specific data. And the documentation shows you how to structure that URL in a way that the server understands. You can also create your own APIs on your own server where you create the URL structure, maybe reach out to a database, and then send data back to that specific URL. I have a playlist of videos where we're creating this music talk app, an API on the back end, and it's an app that's like Facebook, but people just talk about music. It's pretty much the best idea ever. But anyway, in this video, I'll show you how to use the Giphy API. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced GIF. Hey, I heard the person that created the GIF file is pronouncing it GIF, so I'm sticking with that. And so on Giphy.com here, they have all these GIFs, and you can search for certain GIFs. So if I search for laughing, we see a bunch of laughing GIFs. And they have a public API that lets you reach out to their database. They have documentation on how to use that API and structure the URL so you can grab, whatever the user is searching for or whatever you want to search for. And I will show you how to use this API from scratch. So I'm not sure if you ever heard of Google or not, but you can search Giphy API. You'll see this Giphy developers and the documentation or the docs up here. And then go down to under API, you got this API quick start guide. And then you have this quick start guide. And it says, welcome to the Giphy API, where you can seamlessly integrate your app with the largest GIF and sticker library in the world. And here under Quick Start, the following guide will walk you through the minimum viable Giphy API integration for a seamless Giphy experience in your app. If you have any questions, email us at blah, blah, blah. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. And then apply for API keys. So some APIs require API keys, and what that is a unique identifier which authenticates a person or app to communicate with another app. So it's basically like a username and password for our app to talk and get data from their app. And so we will have to create one, and so you have to go to your dashboard and you'll have to make an account. It's just a simple username and password. And before we make our API key, I want to show you, let's see, so they have the trending endpoint or the search endpoint, and we're going to do the search endpoint. And what a endpoint is basically a part of a URL that has a request and a response, where you can send a request to that part of the URL, and that part of the URL will send a response for that request. So Giphy Search gives you instant access to our library of millions of GIFs and stickers by entering a word or phrase. With our unparalleled search algorithm, users can easily express themselves and animate their conversations. Giphy requires the Search API call to be made from the client side, so you can't do it from the server side. And again, I'll be using React here and just JavaScript, so that'll be on the front end or the client side. And the search keyword should be sent to Giphy in a queue parameter in the API call. And you'll see the queue down here. I'll get to that in a second. And search terms could simply be words or phrases typed by the user. Users can also add the @ before a Giphy username to return content from a specific Giphy channel. All special characters should be supported and not re-encoded in your search request. The keyword should be the exact terms the user searched for without any correction or enhancement. So if a user is searching something, you don't want to, change what they search and then grab something else. Just let them search for what they want to search for. Optionally, use the and lang parameter to indicate the language the user has typed in. This will help return unique regional content if available. See here for supported languages. I think there's a bunch of languages that they support. And you may use the rating param to tailor the response per your preferences. And they have like rated, G, PG, PG-13, rated R, things like that. And so this is the API URL that we'll reach out to for the GIFs, and then you'll add on these request parameters. So you've seen, if I go to this URL up here, you'll sometimes see like, a question mark, and then, let's see, author equals tech check. Make sure you like and subscribe. And then like an ampersand, and let's say posts equal 10. These are request parameters. And so we will add those on top of this as directed here. So it'll be an question mark and an API key, and this one is required. So we will need that API key, and then that'll be equal to whatever API key is. That'll be just a random string that they give us. And then Q for query. This one's also required because this will be what they're searching for. For example, cheeseburgers. Limit how many you want to get, whether that's just one GIF or 10 or 20 for a page or whatever. There's the rating there. You can grab that. Language. So pretty cool. So we will do all of that. Let's go ahead and make that API key. So go to your developer dashboard, and then again, you might have to create an account, but it's just username and password. And then in your dashboard, you can click on create an app. It'll do SDK selected by default, which is a software development kit. And I'll go ahead and select API because APIs are more commonly used, so it's better to know. Like I said, this is one of the most important things you can learn as a web developer. So we'll go with the API here, and then click next step, and then create an app. So you can give your app a name. I'm just going to call mine Tech Check. Make sure you like and subscribe. And then give your app a description. See what I did there? Oh boy. And you'll of course read the API terms and then create your app. And then this will be our API key. I was going to highlight it, but I guess you just click it, it already copies it. So got that copied. Now I'll go back to the documentation here. Search endpoint is what we're going to be using. Okay, so I'm going to start a React app from scratch. I'll go ahead and do this pretty quickly, just because I don't want anyone to get stuck on creating a React app. And unfortunately, Create React App is no longer being maintained. So I'm going to use Vite, which is awesome. npm create Vite at latest. Project name, I will call it Giphy API. Go with React. And then I will just go with basic JavaScript. change directory into Giphy API, install our dependencies with npm install, and then I will add one more package for making that request to the API URL. We'll use Axios for that, so do npm install Axios, and now we will open up our code editor in this directory here. And then I will run npm run dev to start up the development server. Hold command and double click this to open up our little default page here. And we'll actually just work right off of this because we have a button here that has a click event. It's updating the count state, and then it's showing that there. And then in the code, where is it? There we go. Go to source, our app.jsx. That is this page here. So we have our use state button on click. So we can go ahead and remove this count thing function there, and we'll just make a function called make API call, and in the button text we will say make API call, and then we will create this function up here. And then this is where we'll make our API call. So we will need Axios. So we'll import Axios from Axios. And now inside this function, we can do whatever we want. And we'll do Axios and then .get for the get method, which sends a get request. And that takes an argument of the, which is a string of the URL that we want to make our API call to. So actually before that, because I'm going to copy the URL to put in here, I'm going to go ahead and while I have that API key copied on my clipboard, I'm going to go ahead and create a .env file at the root of our project. So .env. I don't think this is in our source here. I'm going to put this. Sure you want to move, yes. Get it way up in the root of our project. So API keys are typically all capital letters. Giphy API key equals, and then that's our API key. And if you don't know, environment variables are variables that you want to hide sensitive data, and then you can use the environment variable in your code instead of the sensitive data. And actually, because we're in Vite, we're going to have to do Vite underscore, and we'll need that to access it on the front end in our code. So that's the .env file at the root of our project. I'm going to hide that for now. And you could do, like I said, just a string here that is the URL, but we're going to need to use variables. So I'm going to use a backtick so that we can do a string and variables mixed together. And those variables will be converted to strings when the code is ran. So going back to the documentation, this is our URL here that we want to reach out to with our GET request. And then we want a question mark, because then we're going to want request parameters. And then these are options for request parameters. an API key is required. So I'm going to copy that. I'll say API key equals, and I'm going to do string interpolation here with the $sign and the curly braces. And then because we're in Vite here, we can just do import dot meta dot env, and then our environment variable, which is Vite Giphy API key. And so that's going to be, search question mark API key equals, and then the string that is our API key. And then we can do an ampersand and then add another request parameter. Going back to the documentation here, Q, which is also required, is the query for whatever they want to search for. So we will say Q equals, and then we'll just say celebration. So search for that kind of GIF. And then let's see if we want any other parameters here. If we want a certain limit, don't need that for now. Maximum number default is 25. For beta keys, max limit is 50. Rating, language. Looks like these are all optional, so we'll just go ahead and leave it at that for now. And so we're in this big get, method here, which we have to pass in the string. And then I'll go to another line to make it easier to read, but this dot then is getting added on to the end of this, the closing parentheses of this, which is the method, and then that URL is the argument that we're sending into that method inside those parentheses. So then we have a dot then, and this will get ran if we get a successful response, and then we can access that response with an argument that we can call whatever we want. So we could say like response and then some code, and then do whatever we want with the response. But a lot of times you'll see it shorthanded to res for response. And then for now, we're just gonna console.log the response to see what we're working with here. And then you can also do let's do it right here because that's a little easier. Do a dot catch, and then this will get ran if there's an error. And we'll get access to that error with an argument, which you can call whatever you want, like error, for example. But a lot of times you will see a shorthand of ERR for error. And we will just console.log the error for now as well. Okay, so we're not using this, so I'm going to comment that out for now. We have our button, make API call. Let's see. I think we are all set. I'm going to save this. Okay. Terminal looks good. No crazy errors or anything. Give this a refresh. I'm going to open up the console with Option Command J on Mac. And then this is our console. So we'll click our make API call. And then this is our response. So if you open this, we're seeing data is equal to some kind of HTML here, which is not typically what you would get. So another cool thing you can do here, not seeing the navigation here anymore. Hold on. There we go. You can go under Docs, go all the way to this API Explorer. And so it brought in our API key, choose an endpoint. We're doing the search endpoint. And then you can kind of test on what the response will be. So celebrations, what we're doing here, and you see it's updating this request URL. So that's the API that we reached out to, our API key, the and Q equals celebration. I'll say it has the limit and some things in there as well, which I believe those were optional. So I'm just going to copy this URL. And you know what it might be? We don't have the HTTPS there. I wonder if that's why. So I'm going to replace this. And now we'll just be displaying our API key, which is fine. Actually, I'll just go ahead and replace it just because that's a best practice. But anyways, it could be the HTTPS there. That's what the issue was. So go back to our app here, give it an old refresh, make API call. There we go. Now I'm seeing data there. So you open up data, and then it has a data property inside that, which is also an object. Open that up. Oh, sorry, this was the whole response object. And then there was the one data property, which is an object. Open that up. There's another data property, and that is an array, is the value of that property. So this is just an array of 25 GIFs, 0 to 24, because they count the 0 there. So these are all different GIFs, and you can open up one, and then you have all this content for it. If you go to images, and the way you would render a GIF is like the image URL, like the source URL of the image, and then you can do that in an image tag and it'll render the GIF. So for each GIF, and you go into images, and then let's see, fixed, we'll say the fixed height one there, and then this URL is the property where we could take this URL and then put that in the source of an image tag and render it. And so there's a lot of data here, but we have, let's see, the response object, and then a property of data, and then data again. So if we go to our response here, we got response dot data dot data. So let's just save that and see what that gives us. So go make API call and say now we have just an array of the 25 GIFs. So if you want to just render one, sorry, I have to bring my code editor to this side because I'll just keep going the wrong way there. So changing that, that's how I usually work. So anyways, we have an array of GIFs here. And so this is an array. And so if we want to just render one GIF, we could say, grab that item of the array, take a look at that, make API call. So that's just an object. And this is kind of how you can work with APIs, just kind of keep drilling down into the data and get what you want. So this is an object. We want to get to images, and then we'll just say fixed height. So we'll say dot images dot fixed height. I think it was images plural, yes, and then fixed underscore height, which is an object also, and then we want dot URL. So dot URL. Save that. We will make another API call. And there we go. So if we take this, like we can put this in an image tag and render it, but we can also put it in the browser here. Hey, nice. So that is the URL that we want. And now let's bring back this use state so we can start to render it here. And we'll just say GIF and set GIF. And then underneath our console.log here, we will do set GIF to, and we can grab this giant monster here, set GIF to that URL. And then let's see, here's our button, make API call. We've got those logos here. Let's just go underneath the Vite and React thing. So we'll do image source equals GIF. So that'll be the URL. And we will close that image tag, hit save, and it's not rendering correctly. Hey, there it is. Nice. Okay, so now I will show you how to kind of grab an array of those and then render multiple. So let's see, if we go to our code here, and I'll also show you, if someone was searching for one, how that would, how you could put that in the URL as well. Do I just have a blank space here? Let's get rid of that empty line. There we go. So we have our API key, query equals celebration, limit 25. Let's just do a limit of 6. So we'll get 6 GIFs back. And then, so the response.data, we don't want to access just the first one, but we want to get that whole array. So that should be that. And then we will turn this from GIF to GIFs plural. We will set GIFs to that array. And then I'll comment this out for now because GIF is no longer a variable. Just make sure we're getting a array here. Make API call. Okay, so we are getting the array, which is good. And that array is saved to GIFs here. And so instead of the one image tag, we'll now want to check if there are GIFs. This is, true or false. If it's true, this will run. If it's false, that will run. So, and this is where we're checking for that. So if there are GIFs, we will do gifs.map. And then we'll map through, loop through all those. We'll call each one a GIF. And then actually we're gonna get a couple arguments here, because we'll also grab the index. And then for each GIF, we will return image tag, and we'll do a key equal to the index, so they'll have a unique value. Typically you would just do like the unique ID that you get from the item in the database, but this is fine for now. And then the source, and so we'll have the one GIF for each one, and then let's see, what was it? I think that was .images, I forget, images, and then fixed height, and then URL. Fixed height, and then URL. Close that image tag. And so this will all run if GIFs is true. And then if it's not, we will just render nothing. And so I think that's good. We'll save that. Hey! So there you go. That's how you use an API, reference the documentation, parse the data, and render the data. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please give it a like and let me know what else you'd like me to cover. Subscribe to my channel no matter what. And thank you very much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.